We all want to be the smartest person in the room, to be right, to have the answer nobody else has. That feeling of certainty, it's intoxicating, and honestly, it's a little addictive. And I want to tell you about the man who took that further than anyone in the Marvel Universe, Doctor Doom. And the single flaw hiding inside that need to be right that destroys him over and over again. And I'm almost positive you have a little bit of that same flaw. I know I do. It's one of the most human things there is. And Doom is just what it looks like when you let that run your entire life, all the way till the end. And this may sound weird, but by the end of this, you're going to recognize yourself in a supervillain. I certainly have. And I think it might change how you handle the next argument you get into. And it also could give us some genuine insight on why Robert Downey Jr. chose to now play Doctor Doom after already playing Iron Man. Because there are 3 layers to this, and each one goes deeper than the last. And by the time we hit the bottom one, I think it's going to hit a little close to home. So let's start at the surface. And it starts with something tragic, but kind of beautiful. Dr. Doom, whose real name is Victor Von Doom, was born with nothing. His mother, Cynthia, was a sorceress whose soul got taken by the demon Mephisto after her death. It got dragged down to a hell dimension. Shortly after that, while on the run with his father from a king who was hunting them down, his father died as well, freezing to death after wrapping his own coat around his son, Victor, so the boy could live. He was orphaned, young, poor, and grieving. But he had one thing, a brilliant mind. He mastered both science and magic, and he decided very young that he was going to build a machine, reach into that hell dimension, and pull his mother back out. So far, he's the hero of his own story, a grieving kid trying to save the person he loved most. And honestly, if the story stopped here, Victor Von Doom would be one of the good guys, just a man who loved his mother. But then he meets a man named Reed Richards, and Reed looks over the schematics for Victor's machine. He does the math and he tells him that there is a flaw. The calculations are off. It's going to fail. And this tiny moment is the one that defines his entire life. Not a big epic battle, not him taking on gods or the Avengers or the Fantastic Four. This tiny moment, a guy telling him he made a mistake, because you already know that feeling, right? That little hot flash when someone points at your work, your plan, your relationship, and says, hey, I think that part's wrong. That half second where you have to choose. Do I actually look at what they're saying, or do I defend myself? And here's the wild part. Our brains are basically wired to pick defend. Psychologists have a name for it. The backfire effect. When someone challenges a belief we've tied our identity to, we don't just resist the correction. We often dig in and believe the wrong thing harder. So the smarter and more sure of yourself you are, sometimes the worse you are at this, which is exactly Doom's problem. Victor chooses to defend himself. He genuinely cannot accept that an imperfect thought came out of his perfect mind. So he ignores the warning completely. And he runs the machine anyways, and it explodes in his face. Here's the part that's almost too perfect. The explosion didn't kill him. And based on what comic you're reading, it barely scarred him. A minor mark. But to Victor, a single blemish on his perfect face was so unbearable. So he gets expelled from the university. He travels the world chasing forbidden knowledge until he finds a hidden order of monks high in the mountains of Tibet. He masters their mystic disciplines, becomes powerful enough to command them, and he has them forge him a suit of armor. And as the iron faceplate is finished, Victor demands they press it onto his face right away while it's still red hot. He permanently disfigures himself to hide a scar that was barely there. And think about that for a second. His need to hide the wound is the thing that actually destroyed his face. He burned himself, trying to cover himself up, and be honest. Haven't we all done a smaller version of that, made a tiny mistake, and then made it 100 times worse trying to cover it up? Told a little lie, then told 10 more to protect it, got defensive over something small and blew up. That's the mask going on while it's still hot. Now, whose fault was the accident? His. He built it. He was warned. He ignored the warning and was scarred because of it. By any honest measure, Victor scarred himself through his own pride. But for the rest of his life, decades of it, he blames Reed Richards. He blames the world. He builds a kingdom, an army, a suit of armor, an entire war. Also, he never has to say the 3 words, "I was wrong." That's the whole tragedy. And it's the actual difference between a hero and a villain. It was never the powers. It's the ability to admit fault. So that's the surface, a genius who couldn't admit one mistake. But here's the second, deeper layer. And this is where it stops being about Doom and starts to be about you and me. Because Doom isn't really a story about a supervillain. I mean, of course it is, but deep down, he's a warning about a choice you and I make constantly. Someone points out a flaw in our math, a bad habit, a blind spot, a mistake. And in that exact second, we get the same choice Victor got. We can swallow the pride, look at the equation and go, yeah, you're right. I'm wrong. Or we can ignite the machine anyways. And most of the time, we ignite the machine. I've done it plenty of times. We blow up the relationship, the friendship, our own peace of mind, just to avoid feeling inferior for 1 second. And then instead of facing the wreckage, we forge a mask. We double down. We cover the insecurity with anger and pride and blame, and we press it into our skin until it hardens into who we are. Because here's the quiet, brutal truth under Doom's whole story, and I'd sit with this one. The accident didn't ruin his life. His refusal to own the accident ruined his life. He was brilliant enough to have any life he wanted, but you cannot heal a wound you won't admit you caused. You just keep reopening it. Blame feels like protection. If it's Reed's fault, Victor never has to feel the shame. But that protection is a cage. Every ounce of energy he spends proving it was someone else's fault is energy he's not spending getting better. He picks being right over being healed every single time, forever. And I think we've all got a little Reed Richards that we blame, don't we? An ex, a parent, a boss, the algorithm, the economy, some person or thing we've decided is the reason our machine blew up. So we never have to really look at our own hand on the switch. And if this is hitting you the same way that it hit me when I first put it together, that's the whole reason I make these videos. So if you want more lessons hiding in the characters that we love, I'd love if you subscribed and stuck around. It genuinely helps me keep doing this. And I'm curious, who's your Reed Richards, the person or the thing you catch yourself blaming? Drop it in the comments. I read them. No judgment. I've got a list of my own. And that brings us to the deepest layer. The one that made me really, really want to make this video, because it's the moment Robert Downey Jr. puts on the mask, because he already played the other version of this man, and that is Tony Stark. Tony Stark builds the exact same armor Doom builds, same genius, same trauma, same enormous ego, but somewhere along the way, Tony learns to say the words, "I am Iron Man. This one's on me. I've got to fix this. I am wrong." He learns to take the mask off, to be seen, to own it. And that's what makes him a hero instead of a villain. Not the suit, the accountability. Doom never learns that. That's really the only big, massive difference between them. Two brilliant, wounded men, identical armor almost, and one of them could finally say, "It was me." And the other would rather try to rule the world than admit that he was wrong. So when Robert Downey Jr. puts that mask on, it's not just casting. It's the same actor showing you both roads of the same pain. The man who took the armor off and the man who never could. The man who took off the mask and the man who put it on. And the wild thing is, You're standing at that same fork more often than you think, probably this week. So here's what I'd actually leave you with. The next time somebody points at your math and says, hey, this is off, and it's coming, it always comes, just watch what you do in that half second. Do you look at the equation or do you reach for the mask? Because that half second is the entire difference between Tony Stark and Victor Von Doom, between healing and hiding, between the guy who grows and the guy who spends his whole brilliant life being right and alone. I can honestly say that I've been Victor Von Doom many times in my life, but I've also worked on it, and I have tried to be more like Tony Stark. And every time that I have chosen to be like Tony, it's worked out so much better than choosing to blame someone else instead of owning my mistakes. Everybody gets scarred. Everybody builds a little armor. That's not the tragedy. That's just being alive. The tragedy is deciding you'll never take it off. So the thing you're most tempted to blame someone else for right now, the wound you keep saying somebody did to you, what if the bravest, smartest thing you could do is take off the mask and admit that part of it was you? Because if you spend your whole life defending your pride, you might just conquer the world, but you'll always be a prisoner, alone inside your armor. So take off the mask. Look at the math. It's one of the bravest things that you can do. If this one meant something to you, I would love it if you shared it with somebody who you think needs to hear it. And I'll see you in the next one.